not. Good evening, everyone. And let's see, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. So that's plenty. Evie can't be with us tonight, and I know Val can't be with us tonight either. So welcome, and I will look at the agenda. It's privilege of the floor. Does anyone have anything they would like to say?
I don't see any hands.
Hearing none, I will go on. Tim, the town council report.
The town council is holding its business meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Is it going to be exciting?
It's always exciting.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'm having this, I can't see my screen and the thing at the same time. It's great.
Bifocals.
Yeah, well, these are bifocals, but they don't really work in that way. Bill isn't here yet, though I'm quite sure he's coming. So the work that we're going to do this evening, and Nan is not coming. She said, you guys should have at it and tell me what you did, and I will listen to the thing. But what I think we should do is start with a relatively easy Hamlet and sort of get it under our wings, and then we will move on to a more difficult Hamlet, or one where we think the borders are more interesting. So anyone want to throw out a Hamlet that they would like to start with?
You want to approve those minutes or not?
Oh, I do want to approve the minutes. I always skip right over that. Ernie, would you like to move the minutes? How about you, Bruce? Would you like to move the minutes?
Well, you know, I just really didn't read them yet.
Well, then in that case, oops, we just lost it.
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Barb. I can't see your face.
I'll second it. Can I second it?
Yes, you may. Thank you, Michelle. And anyone have any objections? If not, I say nod your heads and the minutes are approved. Great. Thank you. Welcome, Bill. Bill, I was just saying that my goal was to start with a relatively easy Hamlet and move on to one that's a little more difficult. So, Mark.
I have a technical question.
Yes.
So I was trying to pull up the maps out of my email, but if there's somebody else that's on the Zoom call that could share the maps, that would be awesome. And I'll give them screen sharing privileges.
That would be great. Does anyone, I know Bill, for instance, I know has looked at these. Do you have some maps you could screen share? We can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Yeah, sorry. I have to sync my laptop with my other set of files, which I actually was about to do as all this came up, and then I will have
Okay.
them to share,
Okay,
but I
we'll
don't
just-
yet.
You will in a minute.
Yeah,
Bruce.
I hope to at least.
I was waiting to see, you were talking about which one.
Yeah, where would you like to start? Do you have any ideas?
I would think Speedsville might be pretty easy to start with.
Okay, I like that idea. We're gonna make Bill the co-host, and the idea is we start with Speedsville. And
All right, let me just go here.
we have a map. No, we have this map, but, and Bill will pull it up so people can look at it.
Yeah, it'll be 3 minutes or something. I've got to.
That's okay. So let's discuss Speedsville. Does anyone have any?
Those
Yep.
are the map sets that I printed today.
Okay, oh, great, good. So Speedsville is interestingly compact because it also runs off into another county. So, one second. So I'm gonna get my map out.
All right, I can read roads on this.
So Speedsville, it crosses into the next county on, so we know what where's north? North, I think north is up on this. We know what the northeastern edge is because it is the west branch of the Owego Creek, because that's where the town of Speedsville ends.
So is there anything, just to kind of for context, is there any zoning or land use regulation on the east border, you know, for whatever town this is bordering along that east side?
There is not.
Okay, thank you.
And
I'm
then,
ready. Let me just, I can
Great.
start a screen share.
thank you, Bill. And then what you have is basically you've got like the store and the gas station, and you have that comes up
Yes.
115.
So I'm
I'm
sort of waving my cursor over things as you talk about them to the extent that I know, because of course you can't point on my map.
That's okay. So you can see on the right side of the map, that's where the creek comes in. And then the Speedsville is very much there and in that curve, and then the straight line down. So what do people think of where, let's try for the southern border of Speedsville. And there is a little block around this in red that I think are the lines that Rick and Nan put in.
Oh, okay.
So that's, it goes just a little further than Saint Steve, I don't know what Saint Church it is. Saint someone's church, it's an Episcopal church there. And it's also a creek line because that goes to the south. That seems,
Yeah, there's the creek line.
yep. And that seems highly rational. And then to the north, I'm not quite sure why they have the line where they have it, but it probably has something to do with lot lines, I would assume.
It doesn't look like it to me, because it looks like this is one of the few cases in which they've cut across a lot line, but I'm not positive this is a lot line here.
Okay,
Let's
Yeah,
see.
I would suggest that there's no reason to encompass a particular property. That's all very steep.
Okay,
And in terms of the southern border, like you were asking, I'm fine with this, you know, as this is all, you know, prime, yellow is prime farmland soil. So it seems reasonable to keep that in the ag district.
yes,
And Ernie, you said this was steep up here?
Yeah, level green road, which.
Oh, that's right,
is-
that comes down.
and that comes down that very steep hill.
Right,
And-
this
and
actually, this
so
is one of the, this is scenic, one of the scenic views in the county, in the town is
Sure.
up here because it's looking up this way.
Sure.
So the southern border of that piece that that juts down, that's most south on 115.
Yep,
Bill, if you could
Right.
put your cursor
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there is any value in excluding the property that appears to be the, excluding from the hamlet boundary, the property that appears to be the Episcopal Church property, just in the sense that churches can go anywhere. So they don't, you know, they don't have to be in a hamlet, or, you know, they could be in an agricultural zone. But that particular parcel appears to have a good deal of prime farmland and active farmland. And so I wonder if there's any benefit in ending the hamlet on that parcel that is just north of the church property, going down 115, then to include the little triangular property on the west side of 115 that is already in there.
okay. What do people think about that?
I mean, just as an aside, I think the prime farmland thing isn't more likely that we're going to end up with an overlay district to kind of, you know, cut through the areas of, you know, so we don't need to talk about where the yellow is in relationship to the borders in any.
Huh,
Just throwing that
Yeah,
out.
no, it's a
You know,
good point,
that
Ernie.
was the idea of an overlay district in my mind.
So we don't have Nan or Rick on this. Are they coming tonight?
they are not. And
Okay,
Nan said I could call her if we had questions, but they said, have at it.
all right. So, and I don't know what we're gonna do about an overlay district and ag properties. I initially was very much in favor of that. I still sort of am, but I'll guess my 2 cents here is, I think that no matter what, we're gonna have to deal with some prime land, farmland in a hamlet district, because that definitely happens a lot in West
Right.
Slaterville.
Right.
So it'll get
Right.
handled either by written regs in this hamlet zone or as an overlay district. Where I'm ambivalent about the overlay that I was originally really in favor of is that there's a lot of active farmland that they included in that overlay. And I'm a little, soil is soil. Whether something is farmed or not is more fluid. And so I'm a little leery of having a overlay zone that is predicated on what is currently being farmed. I mean, by definition, maybe what's currently being farmed is the best soil left. But so anyway, I've been going back and forth in my mind about whether we should use an overlay district or just, have written regulations in each district. But either way, I agree with you, Ernie. We can handle the soil one way or the other, whether it's in the hamlet or out. I'm okay either way. In this case, I think the church might feel kind of part of Speedsville, and so it might feel kind of weird if it weren't
Yeah,
part of it.
exactly.
And so I would tend to keep the border as they drew it, but I'm okay either way.
This is Michelle. I guess I thought that having a church kind of was the definition of a hamlet, so it seems like you would want it included, no?
Having a
Yeah.
public building makes you a viable hamlet.
Right.
So, and the church and the fire station here would do that. But it's very much a part of the hamlet in a sense. It's very there. I mean, it's very.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the cultural engagement that it brings to the area. I'm just looking at the prime farmland designation and active farmland. But that's fine. I'm fine. I'm just raising questions. That's fine to keep it as
Okay,
is.
and I will put that in the notes
And-
that I give to Nan and Rick. Bruce,
Are we tied to have to follow lot lines?
no, we're not, though we, splitting a lot line would be very.
It gets
confusing.
really
Yeah.
complicated
Yeah,
when.
I'm just looking at the map, was thinking, why couldn't we just make that red line follow the green line around the church and back, and that would
Yeah.
just continue
Uh,
the prime.
Nan and Rick definitely suggested or advised that where possible, they follow lot lines. And it sounds like Ernie has some experience in maybe
Okay.
other municipalities.
Okay,
Just asking.
It's a nightmare for the enforcement.
Well, the problem then with this, it appears that big plot that has 3 buildings on it, on the east side along the creek, has yellow soil and lots of active farmland, but the red hamlet boundary line cuts right through it. And then, again, to the northern boundary seems like it's cutting across at least a couple of parcels, and it's not clear that the kind of middle western, southwestern border along Boyer Creek actually cuts a property line, although there does seem to be a definable creek line, which
Yeah.
is enforceable.
Right.
But
But let-
I don't think that this is following the parcel lines. So if we
Yeah,
want to
let
do
me-
something
I
about
have
that, we
some
have to.
parcel maps on my computer. I'm gonna pull up for me and I'll check whether these are parcel boundaries or not.
These are parcel, there's no about it. These are parcel boundaries, black lines, and where the red line goes over the black line, you won't see the black line under it. But at least
Right.
in the map. that I'm-
Well, that's not true on my map. On my map, just as an example, if you take a look at the middle northwestern plot that has a lot of red hashtags, the upper part of that kind of whitish area with hashtags, the upper part beyond the hashtags, clearly on my map shows a red and black line. But then the red line goes all through the hash marks, and then it becomes red and black down for that boundary, that parcel between 115 and Level Green Road. So I'm not sure that that's
No,
an accurate.
you're absolutely correct. That line that Nan drew goes across that lot. It does not follow the lot lines.
Right.
And that's why I'm suggesting that we follow the lot lines there.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
so
Okay,
I
so-
think that there's a couple things going, just for everyone's clarity here. Nan and Rick drew some lines across properties where
Yeah.
they just were connecting the dots. It's kind of up to us to decide whether we want to do that. I don't think that we should never do it, but I think that we should do it with full knowledge that it can be a little awkward. Where the creek is used as a line, that's clearly fine. You know, nobody's going to build a building across the creek.
Right,
So it's just that in other cases where a building is in two different zones, it gets to be a little awkward. Okay.
All right, and I have pulled up a tax map, and unfortunately, it's two different tax maps that cover what we're talking about here in Speedsville. And indeed, I think the discussion seems to be accurate in terms of what is and is not a lot line.
Bruce.
On the south side towards 115, where the church is, on the back side of the red line, is that a lot line there?
No, that is not.
Because that's like a huge lot then, correct?
Yeah.
Behind the church. Okay, because I'm kind of in favor, I mean, it doesn't matter, to not exclude any buildings from the hamlet, but to possibly lose, you know, a little bit of ag land if we could indeed do that. But if we can do that, we're not following the lot line. I was almost saying then we could go back and save the majority of agricultural land.
Mhm.
Well, but just because we draw a line around it doesn't make it, does it? I mean, we're not, unless I'm misunderstanding something, you know, agricultural land, you know, is sacred for other reasons, and whether we draw it, put it inside or outside of the hamlet doesn't matter.
You got it, I believe.
At least that's how I hope
I
it
think you're
ends
right.
up being.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep, I do.
My sense is what Rick and Nan did when they drew the lines on the northern lines here and some others, is they went back around, I think partly for slope, as people were saying, because level green comes down, it's very steep above that. It's very steep below the line. And they also were setting back about 250 or 300 feet from a road edge so that someone could build in that area within the hamlet, could build like housing or something suitable for a hamlet. That's sort of my interpretation of this. Is that what you would interpret that as?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, they were using their best. They were guessing, and I think that we just kind of follow along and discuss the line as it's drawn.
Okay, so considering that, do you think that this in general makes sense? I mean, some people might say that the stuff to the west, the northwest there is, you know, it's somewhat distant from Speedsville, and yet I would think it's part of Speedsville. What would you all think?
I think it leaves some room for expansion.
Mhm.
What was that again, Gene? I didn't
Well,
follow.
I'm thinking of the things to the west, to the northwest there, that there's a separation between the last grouping of houses and the ones that are closer into the center of Speedsville. But I'm okay with making Speedsville this large.
Yes.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It does provide room for expansion. And most of that is not prime farmland either. It's just the
Right.
areas in between. So,
And I think most of the development of Speedsville, future development is all going to go up West Creek Road, because that's already got a bunch of stuff happening. It's a bunch of residential, you know, little weirdo businesses and whatnot.
But are you saying it's out of the county mostly, right? Because
It's out of our hands, right?
Right.
No, I think this line actually, in my mind, other than readjusting to follow the lot line just off of that little piece of level green road, I think this is perfect.
So Ernie, were you suggesting bring it over here and down level green? I'm not sure I fully
Yeah,
understood.
right, no, right. Okay, move your cursor back to where you hit it,
Up here?
down right there. Oh.
So I'm gonna draw
I
that.
know. Okay, so there's a phase delay. When I move it and you
He's
guys
doing
see
this.
it, there's
He's
like a
bringing this
3-second
up
delay.
here.
This is gonna be trying to like
Okay,
remote
all right,
control
all right.
an aircraft.
Okay. So the words Speedsville
Yeah,
Road.
Yeah.
There's a lot line running behind all of those properties. That the red line just kind of cuts across. It cuts across through the red hatched area. I think that red line should follow the property lines. There's no reason to include that piece behind those properties in the hamlet because there's no frontage, there's no access to it. So it's kind of worthless. That's just my, it would just get rid of a line that crosses property for no good reason.
I'm fine with that, with the exception and a question. Do we want to make an exception there along Level Green Road? Just because there is frontage there. Because if we're going to have the other boundary intact that's left of Level Green Road, there might be an argument that, adding another kind of cornerish property there on Level Green Road, just north of that existing parcel, might be okay.
Yeah, and I'm also noticing that there's some buildings that are kind of hidden underneath the Speedsville Common Road area that seem to be in that parcel. So maybe we leave that line where it is.
Okay.
Are we talking about going all the way up Level Green and making that straight across?
No.
No.
Bill, can you use a pointer and sort of show what you were talking?
I'm not sure I follow what Ernie's been talking about.
So move your
I'm
pointer.
I'm on Level Green.
Yes, move your pointer down to where the red line joins it, right there. And just to the east of that, there is frontage. I mean, if we were to include that depending on, but there's frontage on Level Green Road was my point. It's not just an all, kind of out there property that's surrounded by everything else.
And there are also some buildings there that are on that property that are accessed off of Old 76 Road there. So
underneath the Speedsville lettering, as Ernie was saying.
Yeah.
So you're
so
basically saying now to just leave that line where it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. Yeah. Until we get some more input, I would leave things the way they are.
Yeah, I mean, as a general point, I think, once we put this out, I think that folks who really live in an area will give us plenty of feedback. And I think that's all to the good, actually, because they are the ones that are living it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is essentially leave Speedsville the way it is with the red lines and ask a couple of questions about lot lines, and that we think that some of these lines are here because of steepness. And other than that, we're okay. Is that right?
Sound like Will had a question.
Will.
Yeah, so I couldn't pick up the maps. So all I can go by is what you're displaying.
Yep.
And there's the print on the legend is really tiny. So I'm just going to ask a couple questions. How many lots are actually going to have room for any expansion? It looks like it's about 6 or maybe 8 out of the whole hamlet.
You mean expansion in terms of other buildings, other homes?
Yes,
I would say out of the entire hamlet, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in the area of 10. But that doesn't mean that those lots can't be divided. And also, we've also said that if someone wanted to expand the hamlet at some time, they can come to the zoning commission or the town and talk about doing that. I mean, for instance, you could decide that the hamlet went all the way down to Eckbruce Road in the northwest, excuse me. Bruce?
I guess, can somebody, or you guys tell me, why wouldn't we just go up level green to that lot line and connect, instead of having these little jogs? This little jog on the east corner, southeast or the northeast corner, that little point. Why wouldn't we go right to that lot line with the one house up level green and run straight across the other lot line? Because the steep sections, nobody's really going to be building on, but there is room on the backside of that. I mean, I don't know. I'm open to what people say. It just seems that that would follow the lot lines and give a little more room for expansion. Is anybody on board with what I said?
Anybody else want to talk about that? I mean, originally that was what Ernie, I think, was suggesting, but then he backed off of that.
Yeah, I don't know that if we think about the kind of development that's going to go here, you know, the little green road is that whole hillside is just kind of steep. Residentially could be residential, you know, but I don't think that there would be much in the way of a commercial enterprise that would go up there. I mean, it's gravel, which is another thing.
I think the difficulty with that land is that it's very steep.
Right.
You're really in
Yeah,
a very steep area.
but you know, that's not necessarily inappropriate. No, I think we leave, you know, we got to get through this stuff. Let's just leave things as they are and see what the people who live there got to say about it.
Yeah, and I know that in general, we're going to be looking at these boundaries, and I have places I say, well, we should push this out here. But in terms of expansion, you know, again, this would be a great, potentially, if there's going to be residential development, this would be a great place for conservation subdivision or something like that. It's okay, it can have residential houses, whether it's in the hamlet or not. But in terms of the point, Gene, that came up with Patrick originally about an adjacent property sort of petitioning to get into a zone without essentially what normally it would take, I think, which is an actual change to the zoning law. I don't know if that's legal in New York. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying I don't know the answer. I don't know if his example came from New York. I don't know if New York would allow that. And I think that's a good question for us to get answered either by Nan or the town lawyer.
Someone petitioned me. Okay, I will write that down. Okay, I think that we have completed Slaterville Springs. No, we have not. Speedsville.
All right.
Yes? Let us
Yes.
move on to something more difficult. Anyone want to suggest one?
I mean, I don't think it's more difficult. Should we do we look at Caroline Center? We'll work our way.
Just
Sure,
move
let's do
up the
Caroline
road.
Center.
I thought you said more difficult.
Yeah, no. All right, so now
Okay.
let me,
So here's Caroline Center, and I went
All
and
right.
drove through it today.
all right, and I'm going to try to screen share Caroline Center if I can figure out where all my things are. I'm gonna pause this share temporarily. Go, zoning commission, and then, all right, so Caroline Center. All right. And is this,
That's a
there we
different
are. Okay, now I gotta figure out how to
configuration.
resume my share. There it is. All right, do you guys see a map of Caroline Center now?
No, I
What's
still see
happening
Steve.
now?
Stubbs.
Yes.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
that's Caroline Center.
Now I
Yep,
see.
okay.
I see it.
It may take a while to percolate through to everybody.
There it is.
Definitely different configuration.
No, now it's the same.
Okay.
Now it's the same.
So I'll just jump in here with an observation that that I'm looking at these locations also at the same time on my phone on Google Maps, so I could get an aerial view of what's going on there. So I'm just finding that helpful in case that's helpful to anybody else.
Cool.
Were I to have data at my house that my phone could use, I would do that.
Touche.
Exactly so. So I think someone who was saying something.
Somebody.
Will?
I'll jump in and say
Okay.
something. So looking at the southern and western boundary, my suggestion would be to move that red line at the lower, the southwestern border over at least to the end of the parcel that has a property on it along Downey Road.
Yep.
And, debate for purposes of expansion if we would want to, move that even further or not.
So that would be, as I see it, you would go straight across to the left,
Yes.
but then would you also go up to include that parcel that comes in off of Downey, with a peninsula?
I would, I'd suggest that be the minimum boundary for, again, for the next iteration. But I guess the question is if we're allowing for expansion or, do we want to move it even further to that little polygon border that's even to the, up Downey Road a bit, like north, yeah, right there. And
I see, yes.
and if we were to do that, then I'll also argue that the northern kind of spiky, two triangular spikes, ought to be moved northwest along 115 to include some of those properties. And so maybe we just go to the, follow up 115 to that like long diagonal that's abutting the red hash marks. Yeah, right there where, and then take that down, the triangle, take it down to the border of this map, that
Yep.
diagonal line, and then over on the horizontal line, and then down, down on the vertical line to Downey Road.
So I'm going to argue a bit against that. And I agree. I think it makes sense to include. I mean, if you drive along here, these houses are very close to the road. They sort of feel, sort of not super rurally. But I drove up this road, and these houses are well set back. It's kind of rustic, and you're not going to do much with these lots to build additional housing because they're all narrow way back in. So I don't know about the utility of including them. I'm open, but that's just a thought that maybe these don't make sense given the feel. I think any development is likely to occur along 115 because that's kind of like the major thoroughfare through there. And it did make sense to me when driving there that, yeah, these things here would make some sense to include. That's my 2 cents. Once you get out to here, it's pretty much farm. Like one of these is like a barn and stuff. So I don't know. My 2
So
cents.
Bill, I think what I heard you say was that you agree about going along 115, but
Yes,
not
at least
along
some
Downey
ways.
Road.
Right. That's my take. But again, I'm just one voice. So.
Because you think that the sort of quality of the houses along Downey Road is substantially different in that they're more rural in feel.
Yeah, they're well set back with long driveways that typically go in, and again, I don't see a way to you couldn't really make smaller lots out of these unless you had one, everyone becomes a flag lot with one house in the back and one house up front. And, so I don't see that there's a lot of, further subdividing, here that's likely to happen. But it's really, not up to us, but I would just think that this territory might make some sense and this made less sense to me. But that's, again, just me.
Okay, anyone else want to speak to these points?
Yes, I would like to speak to these points. I first go back to my original position, which is I don't really think that this deserves hamlet designation, but I'm willing to go along. And I would agree with Barb that we should probably take the opportunity here to enlarge this a bit, if we can make some sense out of it. I mean, one thing about Downey Road is that you have all this development on the north side of the road, and there's this big lot to the south, which, presumably is ready for development, unless that's part of Shindigan Hollow. Shindigan Hollow State Forest is a couple of these parcels are part of the state forest. So is this an opportunity to, kind of direct development there? If we don't do anything, probably what will happen will be, these deep, long lots that allow people to kind of spread out on the side of Downey. Then maybe that's what is good and appropriate. I think there are some opportunities for developing further down to the north on Buffalo Road, since that's a fairly reasonable stretch of land there, and up Taft Road. So I would think that enlarging the area a little bit in those terms may make some sense. Vague directions, I understand, but
Right. To the north
some
there is a very active farm. So on the, north of Taft Road, that's the Snow Farm. And it's still active farming. They've gotten rid of their cows, but they make cheese now, and they
Do fields.
they do fields and stuff. And that's on both sides of the road. So it's an active farm. What do other people think about Downey and Old 76?
Old 76, yeah.
Yeah.
So Old 76 is 115.
Yes, yeah. I think that there's a lot to be said about what Barbara had said about expanding up. I think that a lot of these houses in here are similar in feel to Caroline Center. They're on smaller lots generally, and they're closer to the road in general. I think it's weird off of Downey that we would only have the hamlet on one side of Downey Road. That just seems odd. But there aren't any houses on the other side, and it's clearly because someone subdivided their property, which could happen at some point. Michelle, Will, anyone?
I guess I don't have a feel for it one way or another. I agree, those skinny lots, I don't see them getting subdivided because of the road frontage problem.
Right.
So I guess I'm not a really good person to, I don't really know that much about this. It's hard for me to visualize things, thinking about the road frontage, but I think that's a really crucial thing to think about, whether there's road frontage that's sufficient for further development. I'm not convinced that there is, but maybe other people know better.
So why don't we focus on the notion of extending, perhaps leave the Downey Road boundary as it is. So not including those long thin properties, but extending the boundary of the hamlet up 115, perhaps as far as those red hash marks, perhaps just up to the 115, yeah, up there. And then also extending north on that South Road. I don't know what that one, what's Snow Farm on? Is that, oh, that's Buffalo.
Buffalo.
It's on
Yeah,
Buffalo.
yeah, extend north to that, yeah, to right about where the cursor
Yeah.
is right now.
Exactly.
I mean,
So you
this
can
is actually
cross.
probably Cal's house right there, perhaps. I'm not sure if that's his house
Cal's
and that's his
house
barn.
is on the
North.
right side of Buffalo Road there, and
Yeah,
his barn.
I'm pretty sure that they took this parcel out of the
That's-
farm some years ago.
That's
And then so
Jesse's
this
house.
is this is just the house in like an acre or two. And then this is the actual farm.
Yeah. The house on the
I agree. I live
right
down
side of the
there.
road is his parents' house, where I think one of the sons lives now.
Yes, that's true.
So anyway, if we came, a possible to come across, and I don't know what you do. I mean, here, but either come include and go down, or just go down, or go, cut the parcel, but
Right, you could
I-
also
I-
cut the parcel and come across on that, cut the parcel that's closest to 115, or and go straight across is another possibility.
Personally, I would leave it, but
You leave it Which
as
way?
drawn.
as drawn?
on that boundary, I would, yeah. But I guess the snows could weigh in on that better, but I live quite close to that, and I guess that's all farmland. I would just leave it. I don't see that as part of a hamlet.
Okay,
But again, I'll just push everybody to think about the future.
Right.
right.
And again, and I would, so for that reason, I would tend to include something like this area here. But, the future can also be that the zone is changed, and I know that can be a big overhead. So that's why we need to explore this question of how easy could we make it to add adjacent parcels to a zone or not. Some people may see it as an advantage to be in a hamlet, some may see it as a disadvantage. So I'm not sure which way I want to like foist something onto somebody.
So here's my compromise, that on 115, we go up to include the final parcel with a house on it up on that hilltop. On the south side of 115, across the road, we jog and come into where there's like 3 buildings on a lot that's somewhat has a point. And we go up and we go right across on that lot line. And that way we are not including anything that's active farmland, but we are including more of Buffalo Road and more of Old 76 Road.
And then leave the snow house parcel out of it.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
okay, let's suggest that and see how that goes. So we would basically come across here, go up here and go across here, and you'd be including this whole thing.
Tim has a question.
Tim?
I can't see any of that. but-
Yeah, I just have a suggestion that
Gotta give
it
everyone-
might be helpful before totally finalizing these and releasing them for public comment for the zoning commission. Then, once you've gone through this process, to do site visits to relook at the areas that you're mapping. It might be helpful since a lot of
Yeah,
this can be done by
I hope
memory.
people have gone out and looked in this last week, but I think we should do that. And I think we could explain this to Rick and Nan, and they could draw us a different set of lines, and then we could look at those to make sure that we were able to convey that. Thank you, Tim. Okay, with that, are people relatively happy with that? Do you want to go up Taft Road at all? Taft Road has a big tower up at the top of it, is what it's got. It's where
Taft Road Tower.
the Taft Road Tower is, exactly.
This one.
I think that's why I'm able to get internet.
Yeah, I mean, again, I personally probably wouldn't, but again, I drove it today. Again, this is probably because this is part of the Snows field, and so you'd be cutting, that off of a working farm, and then it's kind of wooded, and finally there's a big field in back here, and I
Yeah.
don't see an easy way to do that that made sense, but that's, again, just me.
Okay. Anyone else?
Nope.
We're gonna suggest this, I think, to Rick and Nan, and see what they say with that inclusion, and other than that, I think we're good.
One question,
Yep,
in the northwest corner, that red line cuts right through the middle of that big lot.
the red line.
Yep, the line that Nan had drawn.
The brown line?
No, there's a line kind of like where the white and the green are coming together.
Yes,
Yeah, and you were bringing that lot across,
all the way up.
right, wouldn't it be different to go from there all the way to the end of that lot line and straight up?
Yes, exactly. That's what I was suggesting. We would get rid of this line, and then we go up, include this whole thing here.
Right, and I was looking at this one. Cause that's not on a lot line, right? I
Oh.
was thinking maybe go here and up.
Huh,
Just
Okay.
because it's on a lot line and it squares it up, gives it more room for expansion, but I wasn't sure.
okay. I will suggest that. That does give you some room there to expand along.
I want to ask the rest
That-
of the people just in case.
So basically, it's to the west, take the red line and move it out to the lot line where it says 1796 feet in the middle of it.
Got it.
There?
It's not that far, is it?
Okay.
There's a lot
Let me see.
line that goes,
Just before that,
Oh, I see. Okay, are you talking about down here?
yep,
Yes.
go right to that one,
Yes.
straight up. That's what I was thinking.
and
All right,
then
there. Uh,
we're not including,
I don't care too much, but there's no road frontage. I don't know
oh, that's right, that's not a road.
if it makes a lot of
It doesn't
sense.
Do anything to you, right? There's not a road. That's just a lot line.
But roads can be built.
There's plenty of road frontage over here. And up here,
Over here is
to the
you mean
right,
Downing Road?
South Road,
Downing Road?
and not down the road.
No, those are all lot lines. Those are
Yeah.
not roads.
Yeah, not
I
down
mean,
the road.
if it's this parcel in question, it looks landlocked to me, but I don't know. And Ernie had
I
something
think
that
it
got
is
cut off
landlocked,
for me.
yeah. You're right. It's landlocked and so are, yeah, it is.
Well, it's not landlocked on South Road, it's got that whole opening right there. Right there. That feeds that whole.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, South Road, we're the,
Are these two pieces the same parcel?
I think it might be.
Oh, well, then there is road frontage. Okay.
Looks like it's one big parcel.
Okay, so we'll ask,
Yeah.
is this the same parcel?
Yeah, I would be surprised if they cut it for no particular good reason. So, but we'll find out.
That seems odd.
I will ask that question.
That's
Okay,
what I was saying, it would look like it goes right through the middle.
I wonder if there's a lot line underneath it.
yeah, thank you.
That doesn't-
Again, I
Okay.
can figure it out, but it takes a while and I lose my screen share when I do it. So I won't do it right now.
Okay, let us move along to, we've got Brooksondale and Slaterville and Beesmer. You want to do Brooksondale and Beesmer, or do you want to do Slaterville?
Let's do Slaterville.
Okay.
All right, let me get that one open.
here's Slaterville. Wow,
Right.
this is an interesting map.
Yeah, okay, there we go. I guess that's good enough. So that show up okay for you guys?
Yeah, looks good.
I
Yeah.
don't see it yet, but
Yep, I
We
see.
should get a better pointer though, Bill.
Yeah, I know. It's a little, if I were clever, I could figure that out. But when I come onto this, it turns into a little square rather than an arrow. I don't know why.
We need a
I have
12.
I have a question about this that was reflected in the latest questions that Nan posted, because somebody called me about it.
Okay, what's the question?
on the west side, it looks like it stops short of, I think, is that Ellis Hollow Road that?
Yeah,
one-
this is,
Yes, 164 is Ellis Hollow Road.
So it actually stops short of the sign that says West Sladeville. I think the sign is like right there, but it's not included in the boundary. And why doesn't it go to Ellis Hollow?
I don't
Right.
know.
So somebody called me about that. They live down there. They had a question about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that at minimum, it should go to Ellis Hollow, but I wonder if it should go to Thomas Road.
well, yeah, so I mean, again, we're gonna try to protect prime farmland soil. I mean, it is this thing, I would hate to see this area get
Right.
developed. So we'd have to protect it in some way if we're gonna include it all the way out to here.
Right.
This is the school, right? This is like the car shop. These are more businesses here. So there may not be any much reason to go that far if we're instead just gonna try to set up so that residential development doesn't occur in here. So I could see including this, but I don't see, much reason to go further personally. Because again, these are currently commercial occupations, but it's possible.
I'll just say, it's my understanding that those prime farmland lots have been bought by somebody that does a lot of commercial housing development around here. So
Better got zoning in place. That was a joke.
So it sounds like
heard
we're talking about this. Let's think about then the western border. Do we think, let's first go to the question of, do we think that West Sladeville and Sladeville are one hamlet?
Well,
Yes.
as I understand it, kind of how we're using the terms, Sladeville as a hamlet, West Sladeville as a hamlet. The zoning law doesn't necessarily have to call them out as, the named hamlets, but a zoning law would say, for example, Hamlet type 1 would have these restrictions. Hamlet type 2 would have these restrictions. And so Hamlet type 1 is these locations within the town, and Hamlet type 2 is these locations within the town. So I don't know that we need to really be thinking about, one contiguous area here. If we wanted to leave out, for example, that yellow soil red hash mark area west of 162. Creamery Road.
Which is,
Yeah.
and it's, midline up above and creamy
Midline,
below.
okay, yeah.
So your suggestion is that we just discuss this area, and if we at some point decide that this is two types of hamlet, it's two different areas, we can decide that.
We can decide that, or we can call both sides of it Hamlet type 1. But we don't necessarily have to have, this be a, contiguous area to be the two, the same type of hamlet, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so in that case, let us still talk about the western end of whatever this hamlet area is. So right now, as Michelle had been saying, this goes just into West Sladeville, what's labeled in West Sladeville, but not as far as Ellis Hollow Road. And I think what I was hearing was a suggestion that it should perhaps, was the suggestion that why wouldn't it be included, Michelle?
yeah, I guess the comment that, and it seems reasonable to me, it seems to stop just short of somebody's house. And the sign for West Sladeville is actually at that house. So this boundary doesn't include the sign for West Sladeville. So I would say, why not just move the boundary to Ellis Hollow Road, and that would include it.
And then shift the southern boundary a little bit to the west, right? To include that other parcel.
Yeah, you could.
Well, that was part of the questioning
Okay.
that was that we received through the survey.
Okay,
Right.
And then bring that down to the creek line, I'm assuming,
Yeah, right. This
Yeah,
is
or
the
the
partial
pro- or the
boundary
property-
here.
The parcel boundary, yeah.
or the
Oh,
parcel
yeah, that-
boundary.
that
Okay.
makes sense. I
Okay,
agree.
bring it down to the parcel boundary. So that's what I'm hearing for that. So that's the western end at this point. Let's then talk about the north. So this cuts across some lands but includes, is what I'm seeing, is that it basically goes across some parcel boundaries, but then if you're coming from left to right, it seems, I don't think those are parcel boundaries where it's sort of joggy. And then it goes up into that white area and skirts the red hash mark, and then comes across on a line, which I, again, don't think is a parcel boundary underneath Mulk Cemetery. But it looks like, is that right? Or are those parcel boundaries?
No, I don't think these are parcel boundaries. I'm not sure, though.
No, those are not parcel boundaries.
Okay.
That's the line.
This is one, I think this is the one time where Nan pointed out that they did it, or
Yeah.
Rick pointed out, because it's sort of, rather than take all of this, which didn't make sense. This is one reason why it might make sense to define, this as one hamlet zone and this is another hamlet zone. So we don't have to worry about cutting across there, but, we'll protect the land, the good soil here one way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my concern, is protecting that yellow red hash mark soil that's like, just south of Mulk Cemetery, on both sides of 79. But if you go east of midline, I guess that is 162, where the number 79 is, I would suggest extending that red border all the way up to around all of that development that already exists. Yeah.
So including Fuller Lane then, and
Correct.
including those houses along
Midline.
Midline Road.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. I drove that again today. And I also, back when we did petitioning, that was one of my petition areas. So I was there many times. It's fine. Those are, someone put in a subdivision, and those are, again, kind of large ruralish lots, 5, 6, 7 acres. The duplexes are set back away from the road. It could go either way. It has a very different feel up here than this dense development here. But I wrote on my own map. Yeah, could include this. So I'm okay.
Okay.
Could be a development, so.
Okay, but that leaves then, so you would basically stay with the line that goes south of the words Mulk Cemetery, over and then up to include all those houses, and then down again at the lot lines back of Fuller Lane. That's
Well,
what
the red line that is currently underneath Mulk Cemetery, I might even suggest bringing that down to 79, or not even having that hamlet area in the red hash marked area that borders 79 on both the north and south of 79. Like, just stopping the hamlet at
where those two
yeah,
houses
right there,
are.
stopping the hamlet there.
I think that's the Chopped, whatever it is, the dog place, isn't that?
This is Le Chopped right here, I think.
Yes. I
Yeah,
think it is
they're
too.
the last buildings is Le Chopped Kennels. So you
So-
could include that in this other hamlet zone, if you wish.
Okay, and then the big parcel across the way that has yellow prime land, that's Frank Proto's house. back
Yeah.
in- And would you keep that at this point in this West Sladeville?
I guess I would.
I would
I-
not.
I don't feel strongly about it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
coming
mean,
here,
I think what I'm seeing here is that we're just drawing lines around what we got.
right,
know,
I
where-
agree.
And maybe that's, the way we preserve what we got is to limit things. But, if stuff isn't going to get built here, where are we going to build it? Or are we just saying, no, none?
Well, it's the issue that this is known as prime farmland. So that's,
Well,
to me, that's the
yeah.
issue.
Yeah, and I think that but again, we're gonna have a overlay district, and I'm hoping there is for prime farmland, because I think that we're gonna get into, this drawing lines around land forever, and it's not gonna affect anything unless there is something that gives further protections to farmland, like aquifers and, wetlands and all that stuff. But if we, continue to just draw lines around the uses that are already there, we are not, looking towards a future that's any different. And maybe that's the way it ought to be, but I'm just, kind of,
Well, here's a suggestion. We
not
have,
sure about this process.
we have Boyceville down on Boyceville Road. What about if we
Yeah.
included in West Slaterville, if we included Boyceville?
Well, I was actually, going to come to this meeting with a whole nother idea, which was that there was a hamlet zone that extended from the northwest, the northwest corner of the town all the way over here to the Harford Road that encompassed both Bessemer and Brooktondale and West Slaterville and East Slaterville. And then within that, we would identify zones that were the higher density, more commercial use. Because we have areas, like Burns Road, for instance, as well as the Boyceville. Burns Road was identified in the comprehensive plan as a housing focus area. We've kind of ignored that. So there's a lot of other development here, Deerfield Lane, all these little weird little spots that are, tucked in here or there that, are we going to go around and draw circles around all of those too, because they've already been developed? Or do we, look at the bigger picture and say, okay, we want to get all of everything to happen in this general vicinity, and we're going to allow the really more heavily commercialized areas to happen in these very distinct smaller zones that are picked out of this bigger zone.
So what if we were to extend that West Slaterville boundary on the south down 114 to I don't know what that is, 115. Is that Valley Road or is that?
It's
Yeah.
Valley Road until Boyceville, and then it becomes Central Chapel.
Okay. Yeah, so what if we were to extend it down that and just take the kind of follow the property lines that are closest to where Ellis Hollow is, those two parcels we talked about adding in.
Yep.
And just extend that down to 115 Valley Road. And somehow work Burns Road into that. It's hard
Well, I
to
don't know
explain
that
on the map.
Burns Road to me should be, that's sacred. Those are some of the most beautiful views in the county. But, but for whatever reason, they were considered part of a housing focus area. I don't
Right.
know why. I don't know the history of that. All I know is that, it's there, and we've certainly given credence to a lot of other stuff on the comprehensive plan that I would question. But kind of, drawing these lines again around the places that are already developed, I think it's just, kind of.
Who's one big farm?
So I will mostly side with Ernie and some of his points here. I will say about the comp plan, I will say that the reason that map that has the housing focus areas is in an appendix is because we did not revisit and rehash and reevaluate everything. That was simply, copied and saying, hey, this is what was in the previous comp plan. Whereas everything in the main chapters and text is stuff that we actually researched and looked into. So that is back from saying, Ernie, I agree. I do not know why that area was set aside as a housing focus area. And there was definitely one up in here too. I think that I agree. We need to be looking towards the future. I don't know if what Ernie sketched out is really necessarily, the final answer, but I agree. It feels a little bit like, we're looking at the map and what is there and drawing circles around what's there with a little bit of wiggle room here and there. Growth is going to happen in the town. I think most of the housing is going to probably go in, not in these hamlet areas, because maybe I'm wrong. I think most folks want to go live out on their 15 acres in the country.
Yeah,
And what I would like to be able to do is make sure that the other 3/4 of Caroline does not become 20-acre lots. Now, that's just my personal bias. You know, maybe because I'm here already, I can pull the fences up. But I think this is where I wish Nan were here, because that's the idea behind something like the conservation subdivisions, where, okay, there's a couple hundred acres being developed, you do it in a way that most of that stays open land and the housing is clustered. I don't know if that's going to fly. There's some stuff that was just sold along Whitechurch, or they're in the process of selling it. A couple hundred acres or 140 acres divide up into like 20, 30, 40 acre lots. I don't know if the person doing that would have considered, you know, a conservation subdivision, but I wish I knew, because I think that's a good solution to keeping open land in our ag rural zone. So Ernie, even if we only define these hamlet zones, it doesn't mean there won't be growth and change, because of course there
no,
will
no,
be
no,
residential
no,
development out
no,
here.
no. Of course
And we
there
allow
will.
that.
Yeah, no,
And,
I just,
and we'll still have some controls on it.
yeah. No, and I just, you know, in some ways, to me, it seems perfectly reasonable just to draw the line around what we have there. If indeed the idea is that we're going to keep things the way they are. And you know, the sense I think, well, yeah, that's exactly what we do, is we want to keep the way they are. And so, you know, so I'm saying it's inappropriate and I object to it. I'm just saying, you know, just trying to point out that this is what in effect we are kind of doing here. When we
And
just, you know,
I agree. I'm not objecting necessarily to saying, yeah, the northwest quadrant of Caroline is where we're gonna have development. That's where we're gonna put a big box saying this is where we'll have commercial activities and smaller residential lots, and somehow dictate the rest as being more rural. I don't know. I'm not necessarily, that was Ernie's rough idea. And
yeah.
maybe
Well, I
it's
think
rough.
it's true that we do draw circles around where we are, and partly of that is historical. These are the historical places of development. You know, Caroline Center, Speedsville were the historical centers of development. And that is where housing grew up. You know, we could think, where should housing grow up, but we don't own the land. We don't, and so we don't have that, but there are patterns here. So let's discuss this concept of having,
I can tell you what happened to Burns Road. The farmer sold on Burns Road that, he owned that, all that property. He was an older gentleman. He sold one piece of property and it wasn't so bad. He sold two pieces of property and the tax department told him that now you've sold two pieces of property, you have to, we're gonna tax you like this is all building lots because now it's development property. So he divided it all off into building. And that's why he sold it that way, because that's what he was being taxed as.
okay. Let's talk about Boyceville. Does Boyceville, you know, is essentially what we're talking about. It's essentially a conservation development. It puts a lot of housing in a big lot, right? It does. It's a lot of housing there. It's 120 units of housing. And it has recreation area and dog parks and a wetland. It's not what everyone would think of as it, but it does do that. Does it meet what we've been talking about in terms of a hamlet? Does it make sense to include it in the hamlet?
I think if you stop and think that we're definitely thinking future, that I would think eventually when we develop and expand the hamlet somewhere down the road, that it probably would include that. Most likely.
Yeah, but it's not owned, it's all rental.
It is all
So,
rental. It's all rental today. God only knows what it will be in 20 years, like any piece of property. None of us know. It's all rental.
You couldn't, those wouldn't be allowed to be individual properties, right? I mean,
It would probably
No,
be
it's
something like a homeowners association, wouldn't it, Ernie?
yeah, you'd have to set it up as a homeowners association. I mean, the nearest equivalent we have is a mobile home park,
Right.
or or a homeowners,
Something like that.
condominiums.
Right.
If there's only one
Yeah.
septic, I believe.
No, it has septics for every 3 or 4. I think that he did septics for the clusters. I'm not sure, at least on the original side, the western side, I'm not sure what he did totally on the eastern side. But I think
Yeah,
that's
a lot of the open area here is devoted to septic systems. You know, this is
probably
not a
true, yes.
ideal of a cluster subdivision.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's good in that it did, assuming there was demand for this many new people to live in Caroline, it was a way of keeping them in one area and not taking over all the land. That's good, but it's not really a conservation subdivision where the majority of the parcel is set aside for conservation purposes and a minor fraction is built up by houses.
Right.
Okay. So, do we suggest that we are extending the hamlet down there, or do we just leave it where along
Well,
the
I
street?
think don't we have two kinds of hamlets here?
Yes, we could well. We have not decided that.
Yeah, so I mean, my thinking is that, you know, that the one kind of hamlet type 1, which is the more commercial hamlet, exists within a type 2 hamlet,
Yep,
and that the boundaries of the type 2 hamlet are much larger, and they, you know, and so this kind of depends on what we're going to allow in the type 2 hamlet, but I'm generally thinking that the type 2 hamlet is a little bit denser residential development.
Okay.
Some limited commercial.
All right, so sort of like the city of Ithaca being enclosed in the town of Ithaca, this could be something where there is a largish hamlet all the way around this residential development. And then there's a little section in the middle that is this denser residential / commercial mixed use area. Is that kind of what you're saying, Ernie?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, you know, the general sense, but in my mind, you know, this larger, you know, hamlet, you know, low residential hamlet extends all the way down Valley Road, all the way up to Beesmer, you know, and goes all the way down Route 79, picks up all of that, those little subdivisions, and, you know, all of that stuff, all the way out to the town line. You know, and I don't know if that's a good idea. It's just that in my mind starts to kind of, you know, put the lines around all pieces, you know. I mean, now still entirely.
well, then I'm gonna make a suggestion that we, Will, I think that's Will, go ahead. Will, I can't hear you.
Are
Is
you
it
talking
Will?
to me?
I thought
I'm
that
not
was you
trying,
speaking.
I'm not trying to talk. I'm gonna
Okay.
mute myself again.
Sorry, okay. I'm gonna suggest that we leave Sladeville and go as Ernie has suggested to the other map that has Beesmer and Brooktondale on it, I think. Yes,
Yeah.
That's one of us before we leave.
sure. Because I think we're gonna come back here. But yes, go ahead.
Isn't there a large cemetery across from Caroline School?
Yeah, Mulch Cemetery.
It's next to it, but yeah, there is one across the way. It's in that piece of yellow land there.
Okay, I just,
Yeah.
because it wasn't marked, I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yes, we have a lot of cemeteries. We've got tremendous number.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go to the eastern border of the town of Caroline, which essentially includes a little bit of Banks Road and Beesmer. So Ernie, describe what you're thinking.
Well, you know, my thinking is that, you know, there's that the red lines that kind of go around Brooktondale
Uh-huh.
kind of stay that way. I mean, we adjust a little bit, pick up, you know, Valley Road and this and that, but then we start to look at you know, going up Lackawanna, picking up some of Beaver Creek, once the gravel operation ceases to be, that is all going to be, good development land, I think, and then come up along White Church and pick up, this bunch of this development that's kind of happening there at, just past Caroline, I don't know, and then pick up Burns Road and pick up Boyceville and draw a big line, go around all the outside of that, and that becomes this low density residential zone, or Hamlet 2, as we call it. And then, the downtown Brooktondale becomes the commercial center, and we extend that perhaps up to as far as Medaw Road to capture that other stuff, but then take Bessemer and Hickory Lane and Deerfield Lane and Peasant Walk and all of that stuff, and that that entire area of everything just becomes that that other zone. This is where we want housing to happen. We want it to happen here. A little bit more relaxed lot sizes, but that way. Again, this is just kind of not very thinking, out of the, trying to get it out of the box a little bit. Don't know if it makes any sense.
What other people think about this?
What about all the prime farmland that's in there?
Agricultural overlay. It's all protected by an agricultural overlay.
Yeah. The thing is, it's fascinating how much of the prime farmland has already been built on, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the shame, right? Like,
Yeah.
Exactly. The reason is prime farmland is prime development land.
Yeah,
it's
because
prime
it's
land,
flat.
period.
And no one paid much attention to that.
Yeah. So
basically along 79, what I'm hearing you say is we keep the line as it is, starting at this point that's Caroline, and we're heading east into Bessemer, except you would include those houses. I think you wouldn't go along 79 there. You would sort of have a line that goes.
I would go right along the northern boundary of the town, pretty much.
Yeah.
And in fact, why not just go
all the way
right
to
along,
Landon
all the way over to
or Thomas?
Maybe all the way over to, stop at Thomas. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then
Okay, you're going all the
For
way.
what, for the residential hamlet? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah. And then maybe it just continues across the top of there. Again, I think, I don't know that it's time to try to draw a line around it. I think it's whether anybody thinks this concept has merit, or whether it's just.
I think it's a very interesting concept. You're making that residential. Your concept is that it's residential. It has some commercial in it right now, for instance, Celebrations and
Carson's and
a few other things. And then as you get down
these are all here.
towards the school, you've got a lot of little commercial.
Yeah, it's got.
But you're saying this should be residential. And it also has the storage place.
Yeah, I mean, remember, this was the possible commercial zone that Rick and Nan proposed somewhere in here. I don't know the exact boundary.
Right.
We could go with Ernie's idea that this is then the light commercial / residential area, as is West Laderville. I don't know. But
Well, let's continue this idea of having this be this type 2 hamlet, the kind of
You go
residential.
residential.
Yeah,
What separates it from West Slaterville, or does it just run into West
it
Slaterville?
goes right over it. I mean, basically the West Slater was a little more differently zoned in the looser gross residential area. So I would say that this line that's going east-west goes all the way down to Harvard Road, and then starts heading south and back around and up Boyceville and all the rest of that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Bruce?
So we're like, is an apartment house, like a 6-unit apartment house, considered commercial? Or no?
Yes, anything over, what was it, 3 units or 4 units?
Right, so if you went from like the dog kennel is one, then you have the school, and you have a repair garage, and you got a Carson's Rentals, and you have Celebrations, and you have Ideal Self-Storage, you have a church, you have the Big Red Barn Apartments there, then you have another Ideal Self-Storage, then you have a 6-unit apartment house, then you have the Liberty Plaza. Those are all commercial businesses.
Yep.
From there to there.
Mhm.
So if you,
Yeah.
so we're saying there will be no more, if we
Yeah.
do this, there will be no more commercial businesses there?
Well, they would be grandfathered.
Yeah.
Again,
they
and
would be
all this is residential on the north side of 79. That's all residential pretty much, right? So as is Pheasant Walk and all this.
Until you get to the, like Hunt's Garage, yeah,
You know, that would be the south side. Right.
the north
No,
side. No, they're on the
Hunt's
south.
is on the
Yeah.
north.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there.
Hunt's is on the north,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're-
And so maybe we draw a line around that, and that becomes, a commercial, so there's like 3 little higher density commercial areas along Route 79. Slaterville, West Slaterville, and then Celebrations, etc.
Yeah, most here.
Or maybe the West Slaterville, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, or West Slaterville extends all the way out to just to the east of Pheasant's Walk or whatever that is over there. Snyder Hill Road.
One question I have is that I don't think that the map that has Beesmer on it, I don't think that the northern line there is actually the northern border of the town.
No, yeah, you're right. Here's the northern border of the town. It goes off the map right there. There is some town north of the map being shown.
So if we were to
But
include
it's
it,
actually not, it's not that much.
it's not
Yeah,
very
no, it's
much?
not a lot. It's not a lot.
Okay.
Oh, it's not very much at all. compared
Okay.
to The other maps.
Because then when you get into like Snyder Hill Road, there seems to be more of the town. I don't know what happened there. Does it jog?
A little bit.
Okay.
There's not much on Snyder Hill. It
Okay.
goes up a ways, but not very
But not
far.
very far, okay. What do people think of this idea?
Well, I like the idea of the Brookendale going to Burns Road and up 115, which is Valley Road, just because of all the development that's already there.
I do too. I like Brookendale. I think going all the way out to, including Valley Road and including, if you drive along Valley Road, I think it goes to,
Pretty much Boyceville.
it goes really to pretty much Boyceville. It does. And interestingly, the sign that says Brookendale, now I'm never really sure if those are supposed to be the end of the hamlet or whatever, is not that far from the fire department, really. It's not that far. But it certainly should go as easily as far as White Church Road and maybe one road further than that, maybe up to Burns Road. Because it's very much all of a piece, I think. And I also think if you went up Beesmer Road, I think there are 2 sort of separate areas there. And there's a stream that goes through there, and that could be a division if you wanted to divide Beesmer from Brookendale. But I again think we don't have to do that. We could say all of this area is what we see as a hamlet zone. And it includes, it goes to the eastern border, and then it comes along and includes all of this, this development along Valley Road, and it goes up Valley Road. There's no, to me, it's just crazy to leave out these houses that are on Valley Road, like up to Beaver Creek. And would include Whippoorwill and Wood Thrush as well. That's kind of what I think.
Pretty much the way it's drawn there in Brookendale, you mean?
Yeah, it would include Whippoorwill and Wood Thrush, all of that. And then I don't know about Burns Road. It's, I think it is somewhat different. But I would certainly come along Valley Road and then go, I would include these lots on both sides of Boyceville, and then go back up to 79.
Tim had his hand up.
Oh, Tim, I'm sorry, I don't see you. There you are. Hello,
You okay? Okay.
go ahead.
He's okay. He's waving it.
Oh, he's just waving it off. He's waving it
So,
off.
so Jean, are you,
So-
Jean, are you in, saying go extend it to the east along Valley Road all the way to Central Chapel Road? Is that what you're saying?
I am.
Okay,
Is 114. It's where when Boyceville, which is 114, T's in there,
Okay,
that's where it becomes Central Chapel.
okay. And you don't want to include Burns Road?
I don't know. I don't know what people think about Burns Road. I don't know.
Yeah,
I-
I guess I have to, for me, it depends a little bit what we mean by Hamlet 1 and Hamlet 2, which we've gone back and forth and around so many times, but you know, I was hoping we could define a hamlet type that had a little bit of commercial and was mostly residential, and a different hamlet type that was much more mixed use. And Nan suggested that wasn't really feasible. And so then if we have a residential only hamlet type, this much territory with that many existing businesses, and I know they're grandfathered in, but I think there's going to be a lot of pushback that's an awful lot of territory where we're sort of saying not much besides home businesses. And I don't know how that's, you know, I don't know
I
if that's,
agree.
you know,
I mean,
good
I
or
think
bad.
we could make a more central area of Brookendale. You know, I think there are buildings there that people are considering putting coffee shops in, or some kind of little retail. But
I don't see that.
Yeah, so that depends on how big you draw the Hamlet 2 type, or the commercial mixed residential hamlet zone within this larger zone that Ernie was sketching out.
mhm.
We haven't decided those boundaries yet. I don't know. I had in my notes not Burns as part of Brookendale. And again, driving up there, those are largish lots. Again, the farmer
Yep.
divided them up with road frontage for each one. And again, it felt more rural, more like the country. And yeah, maybe it won't go that way. But again, the way it's been divided up, I don't see that changing a whole lot there. So I would lean with not Burns there, but I also agree this whole corner of the town is pretty much where we should encourage residential development.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, if you look up Burns Road or up Valley Road, though, all those lots adjacent to the lots on Burns Road are all pretty much the same size as the lots that are on Burns Road,
except on the north side of Valley
Yeah.
Road.
except on the north side, correct?
Right.
But on the south side, they're all the same size lots as the ones that are on Burns Road. Darn close.
What
Yeah, I guess
about-
my map, I was stopping a couple properties short of the fire station, so only
Yeah.
the smaller properties, but yeah. But that's putting a circle on what we have. And I am sensitive to Ernie's point that, you know, is that the right thing to do? It might be. And then, you know, allow the borders to migrate in the future, or maybe it's not. I'm ambivalent.
I think this is one of those things, if we kind of reasonably stay where we are and take it to the, see what everybody says about it, is probably what.
Now Tim has his hand up.
Aren't the
Oh, Tim.
properties on the north side of Valley Road limited by the creek mostly? That's why the lot sizes are different.
I don't.
Not totally. After you get east of the creek, they're still small and there's no creek there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why Nan didn't draw the boundary around those properties in the north side already, because to me, they very much feel just like the other spots that are on the
I
south
agree.
side. So,
Okay, so I'm gonna draw a line up here, at least up to, you know where the new fire hall is? You can see that, it's sort of, if you look where the word Burns Road is, and you go north, that's the fire company. There's a lot line that comes down two to the left of the fire hall. I would go to there at least, or I would go either that, or I would go up to 114. And I would make all of that a hamlet, all the way to the town line. With kind of a continuation of the red lines that they put in. That's what I would do. Does that make sense to people? You want to look at that, they can draw it and we can look at it then?
I can't, I really, I'm having problems. I'm looking at the physical map and I can't tell what you're talking about. So I think I have to.
Okay.
I really
Okay,
have
so
to
I'm gonna
see
say-
the
That's not just me.
Let's start at the most eastern part, western part, the most western part of Caroline. So that's the northwestern corner. And you go straight across this map line, all the way over, just all the way over this.
To
map
the
line.
right,
Yeah, to all the way to
right,
the
left,
Yeah.
right, up, down.
Exactly, and then on the south part of this, we follow the red line all the way, but then they've put in, like, they've divided Beesimer from Brooktondale. And
Right.
my suggestion would be to continue it. So we connect those red lines. And we continue with their red line, though I would have both sides of Valley Road in here.
Go to the creek and
Yeah.
follow the
And
creek.
we'll go down to, there's a lot line where it says Beaver Creek Road comes in, and then there's a lot line that goes down. I would follow that lot line
Yeah,
down. And I would do that lot line all the way over, so it includes the mining operation. And then follow that same line across. And it goes, says Brooktondale Fire Company, but that's the old fire company. And it's going north that line, and then it goes across. I would continue that line all the way across.
Back up a second.
yeah, you
Yeah.
lost
Back
me.
where you were going up Valley Road, and
Yeah.
then you were continuing around the gravel
Around
pit.
Whitwell and
The
Woodruff.
gravel
Then-
pit's somewhere in here.
Yeah, okay, and then go to the right.
Yeah.
pick up the church.
And
Right, so
continue
what-
the red line that's there that goes north, where it says.
Okay, and
then
then
go right again.
cross the line.
But
Pick
I
up
would
Whippoorwill.
include- But I would include these houses that are here along 115,
house?
the Valley Road.
Okay, so we're now going somewhere in here. I got you to here and then in here somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, so
Then you wanna-
basically, I'm drawing a line between Burns Road and Valley Road, closer to Valley Road.
Yeah, along this line here.
Property lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm taking that all the way over to 114. And I'm going a little bit along.
So what, are you
Central
cutting
Park Road.
across this property?
The big property. what do you
Yeah, I'm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I'm going to include all of Boyceville. I'm gonna go along the back of Boyceville, and I'm gonna head north to where it hits that line that says West Slaterville. So what I've left out of this is, I've got this whole swath that comes all the way across here and then heads up to West Slaterville. And then we have to go back and draw a line south of 79 that includes from where we've got the red line, that includes the whole Wood Lane, Beesimer Hill area. We have to come and include Deerfield Lane and the Pheasant Walk and all along 79 on both sides into West Slater Hall. I can draw that later and, you know, send those off to people. After I describe them to Rick, and he can draw that. So you've then got this big, huge area that says this is essentially what we're looking at to be residential. And then within that, we're going to take the center of Brooktondale and maybe this little piece around Beesmer where we already have a little bit of commercial. And, you know, so you've got the store and you've got the post office. So in that whole kind of area, like up to Mill Street, the walk that everyone takes on Valley Road and 113A, you know, along Valley Road, part of that I think could be a bit of a commercial area. It doesn't have to be huge, but that would mean to me the, you know, where the old post office was down to the new post office,
Yeah,
where Dr. Tinker's office was.
but those are all, I don't see any room there for a commercial.
And it's not commercial except little places, I think, is what you're, you know, is what we're talking about. This isn't big commercial. But you can put big commercial out in the ag rural area. I mean, if somebody wanted to build a, I don't know, what was it Ernie said one day, an abattoir, which is commercial. The ag land is perfectly fine for that, right? Not good ag land, but other ag land. So what do people think of that idea, or should we just go back to having the smaller places and not including so much?
I'm not sure what your last point was about putting large commercial in ag land. I'm not sure I
Well, I
catch
mean,
that.
I think Bruce's idea is, do people want big commercial and where would they want to put it? I don't see big commercial that's anything different than what we have right now. Coming, you mean, I mean, give me an example of something that you're thinking about, Bruce.
Just anything big commercial, I don't believe it would belong in Brookendale or in any of the hamlets myself.
Well, where do you think it would be along?
Route 79, where it's
79.
already there.
It's not, there's not big commercial.
There's not. That's what I'm trying to understand, what you mean by big commercial and where it would go.
Right.
That's a comment I'm not getting.
Is Celebrations a big commercial? Is that what you mean, Bruce?
Yeah, I would say Celebrations is big commercial. I would say,
Carson's?
Carson's big commercial. I would say the storage units is pretty big commercial. The huge Red Barn Apartments, pretty much big commercial. And
so the question is
Plaza.
question is going forward, would we want to have all of 79 lined with storage units, Celebrations, and Carson's all along 79? I would argue no.
Well, I would
I
agree
with that.
Hamlets. I don't think it would be, I don't think there's that much room to begin with, but I don't think I wouldn't want it in the hamlets, so that's my own personal opinion.
I've had a number of people tell me that they wouldn't want all of 79 to be commercial, partly for traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we heard loud and clear earlier in the moratoria hearings, stuff that in general, the popular, at least those that spoke up, were hoping to retain rural aspects to Route 79. They didn't want to be a strip of businesses from one end of the town to the other. They very clearly spoke for keeping open land in there. That's the desire of those that spoke out on that. I think that what we set up for the ag rural zone, you know, put limits. We allowed some big things, but it put limits on the kinds of businesses that were in that zone, basically farming and farm related, with a few other changes like a brewery or whatever. So I would be okay. I think how we've set up the ag rural zone is fine for the kind of largest commercial that we actually might want to have.
I don't think.
And so what you're suggesting, Bill, then is to keep the south side of 79 ag rural, except maybe that Deerfield Pheasant Walk area?
I'm not sure I'm suggesting anything yet, but that was good mind reading on your part. I really, yeah, I'd almost have to see some of this stuff drawn out. Yeah, it's, you know, we already have a subdivision here, right? Deerfield Pheasant Park, and Pheasant Walk, it went in, right? It's there. But I guess I'm leaning more towards minor tweaks on the maps we have rather than this big tweak. But again, I'm okay with it because it does meet certain goals that I have. And I would definitely do something different. If we're going to have Beesmer be a residential hamlet, then I would definitely change the Brookendale outline to encompass some of the businesses out to Mid-Our Road, but that's a minor tweak. I'm, you know, I don't know.
Gene, Tim has had his hand up for a while.
Okay, sorry, didn't see it. Hello, Tim.
No, I was I was just going to suggest, I mean, I think that this is a really interesting idea that Ernie that Ernie launched. And one of the reasons is, sorry, I don't have a pointer, but in the past 10 years, almost all the development that's happened west of Snyder Hill Road, all the way down to the town line, has been residential. I mean, there are those old commercial things there, but almost all of the development has been residential. And really in the past 2 years, I can think of about 8 new housing starts along that corridor. So it looks like that's a corridor that is really, really ripe for residential development. So it could make sense to legitimize that.
Well, I'm gonna, if this is okay with people, I'm gonna ask them to draw us maps of the 2 things that I think we've suggested here, of sort of expanding the Brookendale a little bit and this whole other idea, and then have people look at those again, because I think that would be very useful for us to do. And then I'm going to suggest that we've got about 15 or 20 minutes, and I want to go on and talk about Sladeville Springs. And because I think otherwise we're going to run out of time.
Yeah.
So let's
I just want to quickly interject on the 2 hamlet types. I mean, are we really talking about one hamlet that is pure residential?
I think we're talking about yes, one type that's very residential with home businesses, and one type that would have a mixture of small commercial in the hamlets, such as such as Sladeville has.
So I asked the question only because if we designate this area out here as sort of like the very residential, and I'm not saying I disagree with that, it you know, that does impact if someone was thinking of doing a somewhat slightly more commercial or Brookendale-like development here along 79. And I think that's probably the right thing. I just want to make sure we're all clear on that.
I think that's what I'm hearing.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, let's go to Sladeville Springs and see what people think. I've lost Sladeville Springs in the map. It's somewhere. Where are you?
All right, so I'm hopefully screen sharing West Sladeville and Sladeville Springs.
Okay. Okay, you know, it's interesting to me, Sladeville Springs is much smaller than I think it is. In my head, Sladeville Springs is much bigger than it is on the map. Fascinating. Okay, so the one thing that we talked about before was including this Fuller Lane area and up Midline Road. And what do you think about the eastern border that is along, basically comes down Hamilton? Does that seem reasonable, or do you think it should go over further towards like 600 Road?
It should go further east.
Yeah, it should reach, I put it at basically Harford Road here. I mean,
Which
again,
is
these are active
117
farms.
Avenue?
I wouldn't encompass that, but I might come along the properties closest that have road frontage
Yeah,
up to Harvard Road. That's my take. I
Okay.
first debated saying, hey, this should be where Sladeville Springs should expand, because other than a little bit here, there's really not prime farmland, whereas there's prime farmland on the other side, right? Between there and West Sladeville. But when I drove it, it's quite rural, right? I mean, from this, you know, from the rest area there this way, it's kind of pretty and nice and rural. And I don't know, I could see people being pretty upset. But at any rate, that's why in the end I wound up saying, okay, out to about Hartford Road and here. So that's like on the minor tweak side, not the sort of major revisions that Ernie is
Okay,
So
arguing.
Hartford's 117.
Hartford is 117.
Yep.
Okay, and then on the south side of 79, would you include those houses that are in the,
Yeah, I would tend to, I don't, maybe it has to come, I don't know what happens with this stuff in here.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
Buffalo Road and, yeah, I thought like the
and
first
I
few
would go up
properties.
Buffalo to where those houses are. I would include those in this, myself.
Yeah,
I would include those houses on Buffalo Road.
I wouldn't go past about here. Again, driving up Buffalo Road, then you start, these are active fields and you get much
Right.
more sort of rural feeling, but
Yeah,
maybe
I would
these
only
closest
include
ones.
the part, sort of where it's the red and white hatching, sort of up to where that red and white hatching is.
The first part of
And
red line is.
it's basically the houses are in the yellow area, basically
Yeah,
the
these
houses
guys,
that
right,
follow
yeah.
it. Because
Sort
then
of
you
along
get
in here.
very rural. And what about on Creamery Road? Would you include those houses that are, it only goes down Creamery a little bit. Would you include the rest of those houses at the northern part of Creamery Road?
No opinion here.
I can't tell if they're using the creek as the boundary as part of this. And maybe that's why, maybe they're using the creek.
It does look like that.
I think they're using the creek, so that makes sense.
It does look like it.
Okay, and then we have, I think the big issue in Sladeville is we've got this very big chunk of prime farmland between Sladeville Springs and West Sladeville. Do you want to include that in the hamlet, but say that we write into these rules that we're trying to write that prime farmland should be preserved?
So
I think
what's
that
the,
rule has to be there, whether it's in an ag conservation zone or whether it's in a hamlet zone. So I'm, I say it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, or 6 of one perhaps.
And 4 of the other?
well, I think that's a question for Nan to help us understand the pros and cons of including that in a hamlet with some sort of extra ag protection versus just designating that ag rural and not including it in a hamlet. I'd like
Okay.
to understand the pros and cons of those two
Agreed.
options.
Okay, my goal is to get myself to write this up and draw giant swaths on maps. And, but I'm going to send it out to you to correct what I've written because I'm sure it isn't correct. I'm sure it will not be 100% right. But I will do that before it goes off to Nan and Rick. Or maybe I will send it to Nan and Rick and then people can say, no, that wasn't what we meant at all. Which would you prefer?
Whatever's timely to give Nan what she needs to do the next steps.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get this done in the next few days.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be making corrections, so.
Okay, then, the only thing that we have not really talked about is Caroline, the hamlet of Caroline, which we don't, I believe, have on a map because I think we all sort of went there and went, there's no there. It's sort of where 79 meets
Go east.
the church. What's the church called? It's is it Level Green or is it the other church?
Oh, the church that's a house.
Yes,
Yeah, that's Level Green.
that's Level Green. So it's like we're Level Green and meet 79. And there's just not, I don't think there's a sufficiency of houses or anything there to think that has hamlet-like qualities anymore. The question, I guess, is would it at some point? The largest amount of housing out in that area is probably really towards the very eastern end of the county. Eastern end of the county. Anyone?
Well,
have any-
the challenge is that it borders Robinson Hollow State Forest. And so that's going to put limitations on what kind of development can be there.
Right. That's true.
I'm lost. I don't know what we're talking about.
Basically, if you took 79 all the way to the town, to the Tioga County line, is there anything there that we want to think about as being other than ag rural?
No, but I did have a few old timers say that was the original Caroline. They were wondering.
Right, I had one old timer tell me that too,
Right,
which considering that I'm 70,
yeah.
how the hell old is an old timer?
There you go, me too.
So, there is gonna be development of some sort there. I think we'll have, Larchwood Farms has been bought and there's a big fence around it. There's gonna be something there,
Cannabis growing.
probably cannabis growing, yeah.
Well, they started that. I don't know if they're actually going to make a go in the end or not, but I know that they were planning to.
Yeah, well, it'd be helpful if the state ever wrote the regulations, because it's really hard to do it without them writing the regulations.
And that doesn't go, did you say to Shindagan State Forest? No.
No, Robinson Hollow,
That was-
that's
I was
Robinson
gonna
Hollow.
say, yeah, okay.
Is there any other areas of the town where you see a lot of either residential development or something else happening that we should consider for these residential areas?
I'm not sure. I mean, some people pointed out about like Snyder Hill Road, but again, those tend to be what I call sort of like large rural lots. And we've
Yeah,
already talked about Deerfield, et cetera, which is very different. It is more suburban. So I don't have anything else.
Snyder Hill actually has 5 new houses on it in the past 8 years. I mean,
Yeah, it's a growth area.
Yeah.
Tim, did you want to say anything about the housing report that you sent?
I had this forwarded, but I apologize that I've had a really busy week, so I haven't had a chance to look at it. This is a countywide housing report that was sent to the town board to, I guess it was sent to Mark and me through TCOG just over the weekend. So I apologize that I actually haven't had a chance to look at it.
Well,
Planner sent it to me, but I know Bill had some comments about it that were.
Bill, what did you think?
Well, I mean, only what I sent out, because I looked at the first quarter or third of it, and because I was curious, because I was looking at some of the same data for the comp plan. But so the housing unit growth rate in Caroline has been fairly stiff in that decade they looked at. We're the second highest town. I'm looking at towns, not the city of Ithaca, not the village of Dryden, that kind of stuff. But a lot of that is attributable to the Boyceville development. And so if you take that out, then we're, much lower down on the growth scale. But, if Boyceville wasn't built, would then more other housing units have been built? I don't know. These are unanswerable questions. Our population growth was relatively minor, and that's partly, because people are renting there, not sure where they're being counted, but also the counting data is a little screwy. Who knows? I don't think the census data is not really available on the municipal level yet, as far as I know. I've been meaning to check on that. At any rate, so our population growth was only about 2%, but our housing growth was about 11% for the decade from 2010 to 2020. That's what jumped out at me mostly.
I was very
in that.
surprised at how much of the town housing is rental property.
Yes, that was the other big factor. Yes, I agree with that.
I think 43%. It was
Yes.
really very surprising to me. Because, certainly Boyceville, but, everything else, there are a couple of big barns that have been made into apartments. 3 or 4 that I can think of, one up at the top of Burns Road, for instance. But I think that must mean that a lot of houses are rented that I
Yes.
never thought of as rented.
My reading of that was that that's what it indicated, that there's a lot of rental housing.
Yeah, it was quite surprising. And as I think Mark had said some meetings ago, that there's been up through like September or August, there had already been 20 housing starts this year.
Yeah, I don't know if I cited, I just noticed that we get a mortgage tax payment every year, and the mortgage tax payment we got for the second quarter was like 3 times higher than normal, so.
Wow, yeah. Well, that's because houses sold.
Yeah, people are taking out mortgages, and so,
Yeah, and houses sold and people are taking out mortgages and the price of everything has gone through the roof.
Through the roof.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't need to prolong this unless anyone has anything else to say.
Well,
built
I
it.
just one thing I want to, and then this is sort of food for thought. So Mark, if you had something quick, maybe you should go first.
Oh, go ahead, Bill. Yeah.
Okay, so this is along the lines of some of the discussion that was happening on the listserv, not listserv, our email chain. I think it's clear, and we talked about this before, that zoning itself can't be approved by a referendum, right? It's a town board vote, it's a local law, et cetera.
Right.
What I had tried to argue earlier in this process is that, however, the process by which this zoning commission decides on a zoning plan is not so proscribed. I mean, other than making sure we have a public hearing and making sure that we have public input, that's pretty much the instructions to the zoning commission. And there's no really great way, as we discussed last meeting, of getting public input. Every single thing will have a flaw or maybe give outsized influence to some small group. But there have been concerns raised by the community that, can't we vote on this? I don't know how we can serve it, but now that we're coming up with boundaries for like a hamlet, yes, I would like to see some way to make sure we get as much public input on that as possible. It could be, a vote. I think that's probably not a great idea, but like the uses in a hamlet, right? How, we can decide that, and that's great, but I don't know how we can try to get as many of the residents to voice an opinion, let us know, so that they have better buy-in. If they feel this is something being foisted on them by this group of 8 people, it's going to have a hard road in the town. I think there's great support for zoning in general. I just want to make sure we don't generate too many bad feelings. So I'd like to figure out ways to get people involved. I'm not sure there's much better we can do than to have another public meeting in which we really go through the uses and the boundaries in detail. But it might take more than one meeting is all I guess I'm trying to put out there. But we could decide to have a vote, right? We could decide the zoning commission will approve whatever the people of Brooktondale vote on. I think it's a bad idea. Because for numerous
I don't even
reasons.
know if it's legal.
No,
Yeah,
it is. It is legal for us to decide amongst ourselves, okay, whatever they vote, that's what we'll recommend to the town board. I don't think that's a good idea.
So-
I don't
Of course.
agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it is legal. I'm sorry.
No, the town board we have to make a recommendation. The town board legally has to vote on it. How we arrive at a recommendation is up to us.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to argue, but I'm not arguing to have a
Right.
vote. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yes, I'm gonna speak strongly against a vote. This
I
is
am not suggesting it.
this is a complicated, long, detailed document.
Yeah.
And to ask for a thumbs up or a thumbs down for people who have not had the ability to express in a narrative way what their concerns are, what their questions are, what their comments are, a vote does not allow that. So I am totally opposed to having a vote
I
of
am
any
too.
type. What I would like us to see is inviting public questions, public comment, responses to those questions and comments when there is more detail available. As we've talked about before, as this becomes more specific, there will be an ability for people to comment more specifically. Even the comments we're getting on the survey, a survey question. So what uses do you want to see in a hamlet? Well, I mean, we have spent, God knows how many hours debating, lists and lists and lists of specific uses. To think that you put that question to a member of the public who is, not thought about zoning at all, and you say what uses should be. I mean, it's like, we've got a list of like 100 uses. How do you expect somebody to answer a survey question and come up with 100 uses on their own and decide whether or not any of those? I mean, it's just, we've got to do a better job of presenting specifics when we get to that point.
Well, that's my point. I think that this next iteration will take a lot of that. And to defend the question on the survey, the point was for someone to maybe think of an idea that we hadn't thought of. I think there's no way that survey question should have been taken to mean which of these 100 uses would you approve or disapprove? Because I agree, that's totally inappropriate. But someone might say, oh, I was thinking of doing X on my property. I'd like to make sure that's allowed. That's the kind of information I think we were hoping to glean, of course, didn't glean, but potentially could have gleaned from that question. But yes, I agree. We need to put the details out there and expect a significant amount of time for people to digest them and give feedback on them.
And discuss and have
And
a
discuss, yeah.
dialogue.
Yeah,
And,
Awesome.
and I would like to say that when I signed up for this commission, there was no one who said anything about I had to convince anybody that this was a good idea. So talking
That's
about
true.
buy-in. Yeah.
Ernie, you are the last person I would ask to do that.
I know.
Well, I suggest that we go over the survey response that we got and then, because I have some questions for Nan about some of these percentages and what some of this stuff means, but there's quite a few good, that we can glean from this, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Without a problem, because even some of the
But
questions
there's
and
no,
comments.
but the survey response is so small.
It is.
I mean, I don't think that we can take statistically any of this information and suggest that it has represents the majority of the town. I think they're great responses and we should, entertain them all, but equally, because I don't think that the percentages mean anything.
No, but the narrative comments are very helpful to
Yeah.
help us understand how people are thinking about this and the questions and comments and concerns that they're raising. And we as a commission need to interpret that and apply that to our considerations as we're drawing boundaries and making decisions.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. It's not determinative because it's like you say, it's not a huge, but it's thought provoking, and that's really where we need to take that.
I think if we were in better times, I would suggest that the next public meeting be done as a series of charrettes where people could come in and look at maps and there would be discussion and that would work. But I am beginning to think that this may be what the normal is now, which is, makes me want to kill myself on some days. So, I don't know how we're going to do that, but I hope that we have at least a few months to figure that out. Mark.
I actually was gonna mention something on the same vein, but not quite as involved, but I noticed that Lizzie Yvette asked a question about how the public can provide input. I think she's off the call now, but I just put that out, emailing Jean, input is always welcome.
Yeah, I've gotten several other comments, which I will be adding
Okay.
into the questions and comments thing, and I'm putting up something on Dropbox. I hope to get that done tomorrow.
Okay.
My computer was in the shop today, so, and it's back. It doesn't work, but it's back. At least, but I tried to get it fixed.
So I just want to say also that, I think this body is doing a fantastic job of soliciting public input. I think it's been really commendable, and of course, I think the consensus that I got from your discussion, I totally agree with. So, food for thought is what you're looking for.
Yep.
But you're not looking for a referendum or anything.
No.
That's not appropriate. You've been charged with this task to use your skills to do your best, and I thank you for that. So
Thank you. I wanted to say that I had on the agenda thinking about January 18th. It turns out that January 18th doesn't work because
it's my
it's,
birthday.
because it's Mark's birthday and because it's also an ag committee meeting, I believe. Isn't that what you told me?
I didn't tell you that, but it could be true.
Someone told me that. Well, it doesn't work anyway.
Does that mean that Don's having a meeting
Right.
with himself?
Yeah,
That-
Don and
I don't-
Catherine are getting together for a beer.
So what I'm thinking about is we're going to have a meeting on the 11th and on the 25th. I think on the 11th, let's figure out if we're going to need to, what Nan is bringing back to us. I think we're going to have some time where we dig into something, maybe a little longer than this, and we'll figure that out on that time. In the meantime, everyone have a good Christmas holiday and New Year's holiday. Enjoy, let's hope we all stay very safe and well during this unfortunate series of events. It's sort of like, what is that storybook? It was a no good, very bad day, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's feeling like. So thank you all. I will send this stuff off. I'll probably talk to Rick and try to talk him through these maps. have him produce a few and we will get them back out to people. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Ta.
Happy holidays. Yep, thanks, everybody.
So I need, how do I get to this Dropbox?